Hi, I'm Lisa Bardot, and today's drawing tutorial is all about ears. This video is a part of my People Skills series, a month-long sequence of tutorials and assignments that will get you familiar with the basics of drawing humans and help you develop your own people drawing style. If this is your first People Skills video, I recommend starting with the introduction and working your way through the tutorials sequentially. We'll be using the iPad app Procreate to do the tutorials, but you are more than welcome to join in with a paper and pencil or whatever medium you feel comfortable using. If you're new to Procreate, I highly recommend watching my Intro to Procreate tutorial. Let's get started. In this video, we're learning how to draw stylized ears, which means we'll be learning to depict them in a way that is not real. But before we can do that, we need to gain an understanding of how a real ear looks through observation. When we want to stylize something, the first thing to do is determine the minimal depiction. We need to figure out the simplest way we can draw an ear and still have it come across as an ear. The most basic way to draw an ear is with a simple C shape. A C shape attached to a circle definitely reads as an ear. Next, let's observe a real ear and break it down into its basic elements. First, we have the overall ear shape. It's kind of shaped like an upside-down egg with an opening on the end. Or sometimes it's shaped more like a question mark, depending on the person's ear. Next is the helix, and this is the part of the ear that goes along the top that kind of folds over. Right underneath that is the antihelix. This is a Y-shaped piece of cartilage that goes from the helix to about 3/4 of the way down on the ear. The next element is the tragus. And this is the rounded bit that sticks out of the head and goes over the ear canal. The next element is the concha, and this is the deepest indentation in the ear. It's sort of shaped like a saddle, like a bike seat. And then finally is the ear canal. You can't always see it, but it's right behind the tragus, and you might use it in your stylized drawings. Let's also talk about how these elements fit into the side view of an ear, because most of the time you probably aren't going to be drawing an ear straight on. So first we have the ear shape, which is going to be a lot more compressed because we're seeing the ear from the side. Here's what this ear would look like if we were viewing it straight on. And then we have the helix, which is going to look a lot flatter when we're looking at it from this angle. And then we have the antihelix, which protrudes from the ear just a little bit more than the actual ear shape, depending on the person's ear. And then you can't really see them in this photo, but we also have the tragus, and the concha is there too. You can definitely see that. It's that indentation. So if we were going to draw an ear from the side over on this side, we would draw the shape, we would draw the helix, the antihelix, and the tragus and the outline of the concha. Here's another drawing I did of the ear at 2 different angles so you can see these elements in both views. So here are the 6 basic elements that we've come up with to define the ear. Now we'll take these and start putting together some ear sketches. Okay, so let's start by drawing an ear with all the basic elements. First is the ear shape, and then the helix, and then we'll draw the antihelix, which is that Y-shaped piece of cartilage, and then we'll draw the tragus and connect it to the antihelix to form the concha. And I understand this is a lot of technical scientific names, but you'll get used to it. And that makes a really basic ear. Not super technical or realistic, but that's okay because that's what we're trying to do here, is create something that's not realistic. So starting with that as a jumping off point, we are going to start to make some observations and ways that we can simplify that. So I'm going to take another color and just show you the things that kind of jump out to me. And the first thing is obviously the ear shape and the helix and the tragus. And then everything in here can just be kind of dark. So let me show you what I mean. So if I have my ear shape, I'm going to simplify that. I have the helix and I have the tragus. And that's like a really simple stylized ear. It doesn't show all the little details, but we can play around with that a little bit and show maybe some more details. So that's another version of it that shows the little details down at the bottom, right above the earlobe. And then we could also just add maybe one line here, and that represents the antihelix, but it's just a line. So that way it looks like there's a little more detail to the ear, but not getting super scientific with it. So of course it's fun to play around with ear shapes too, so we don't have to just do something round. We could do something that's more shaped like a question mark. We can do something that's a little more angular. We can really emphasize the tragus and make it really big, and then we can connect it up with just a simple line like that. And then if we want to go super simple, of course, we have our minimal depiction, which is just that like C shape. And then we can add a little bit of detail to that. So we can use these 2 extra lines to represent the helix and the tragus. And that's enough to communicate an ear as well, like that. One thing I noticed when I was doing my observations of the ears is that the helix starts really far down. It kind of makes this swirl. So it starts a lot farther down than like I would always draw ears kind of like this, like I was just showing you. But the helix actually swirls up and around kind of like that. So that could be an interesting way to change it up a bit. That could be another way to do ears. So going off of that swirl idea, maybe we can exaggerate that. So have it be even more swirly, kind of like that. We can play around with the tragus and just have that be the only element that shows. Maybe just some barely there lines to represent the helix. And this one just kind of has some really exaggerated lines, which I think look kind of fun. So we can play around with that a little bit. Maybe that's a little too exaggerated, but you know, in the right context, I think that could still look like an ear. So let's try some ears in that side view that we were discussing. So the ear's not going to be as wide because we're looking at it from the side. Yeah, so that's a really easy ear. Let's try one more. And this is a sideways ear, but it's like sticking off of the head a bit. And remember how the antihelix protrudes from the ear? We can have that stick out over the edge of the shape of the ear. So kind of like that. Let's try that again up here. So let's maybe like kind of exaggerate some of what I've been doing here. So I'm going to draw the helix, but make it really big, and then have the antihelix like really sticking out far. And then maybe use a little bit of shading to kind of give some extra definition. I think this one looks a little funky, but that's okay because we're just experimenting. So let's maybe tone it back just a little bit. So there's another version that's a little more simplified. And let's go even more simple. So if we're going to do a side view ear, that's more like cartoony, very simple. You could draw it like this. The main difference is that since we're on the side, this part of the helix is going to be wider than this part. So there's a really simple version. We can do one that's like that simple kind of C, like that. Or maybe even like that. I think that ears are super fun to draw. You don't have to study them too hard to be able to start really playing around with style. Like there's other features that move a lot, like the mouth, but the ears don't really move a lot. So you can just get a basic understanding of the ear and then do a lot of really fun creative things with it. So maybe we'll do one that has the helix being super swirly. So the antihelix kind of comes down this way, but then it curves all the way into it like that. This ear kind of, to me, looks like a tuba or something. This ear kind of looks like a tuba to me. But looking at this, I want to see if I can take this, something I see in here, the way the lines are moving, and just reduce the ear shape down into just a few lines. A shape for the helix, and then just one line that just comes down and around, and that's the whole shape of the concha. I'm going to do something like that, but make it more sideways. So that looks like more of a sideways view. Mostly because of this part right here where these lines overlap, where you can't see the whole shape like you can in this one. So that's a good way to do like a sideways ear. We could do one that's really long. We could do one with a really big earlobe. We can even do one that maybe has like gauged ears. Maybe one that has really tiny earlobes. These over here are starting to look a little pointy like elf ears, so maybe we can even play around with that. There's kind of an elf ear. Maybe we'll do an ear that's really round. We can do that in a similar way. I really like that a lot. And now that I've done that, like I can see this really can be just one continuous line to do the whole ear. Another thing we can do is define the cavity within the ear, so that indentation, and just really make that very dark and contrasty. So this dark spot here would actually represent the concha. So you can imagine that if we had the other lines, that's the antihelix. This might actually curve down a little bit more, but yeah. So another way that we could expand upon that is to draw our ear shape, the tragus, and then just defining the whole concha with a shape like that, and then maybe just adding a line for the helix. So that would work as well. So now that I zoom out, and I see that I really want to go back and add some of these dark, like the the really darkened concha to some of these ears over here. So I can expand upon this really simple idea by adding that to it. This one too. Maybe add something there. Yeah, I really like that. So now that I've done that, I can see that's something that I might want to incorporate more into my drawings as I continue on and practice drawing more ears. But I think this sheet is pretty full, so I'm going to be all done for today. Now it's time for you to do your homework. Start with a blank page and fill it up with as many different ears as you can. Really try to think about style and the many different ways you can communicate the ear in a drawing. Read more about this assignment on the lesson page for this tutorial, including a Pinterest board I made with inspiration and additional resources. You can find that page along with an organized list of all the lessons at bardobrush.com/people. I put a link in the description. I hope you'll join us for our next tutorial, where we're going to learn all about facial proportion rules and how to break them. Be sure to subscribe and tap the little bell icon so you don't miss it. I made People Skills as a part of my Making Art Everyday project, a series of drawing prompts, tutorials, and motivation to help you overcome creative fears and establish a daily art making practice. Learn more about it at bardobrush.com/joinMAE. If you'd like to purchase the brushes used in this tutorial, you can find them and many others at bardobrush.com. If you're posting your work to Instagram, I would love to see it. Use the hashtag #bardobrush. Thanks and happy art making! If you like this video, please subscribe for more awesome tutorials. And check out one of my other videos. Have a great day!